So my name is Anne Marie, also known as Bald Girl Will Travel, and I am an HR consultant by day. I help Black women leave bad jobs and seek coaching from other Black women. And the rest of the time, I am an avid solo traveler, and I love talking about solo travel, especially for Black women over 40. We don't get talked about a lot in the solo travel conversations. And so I decided that I wanted to change that. So you can come here to hear about solo travel tips for our age group. And today I'm going to tell you a little bit about 5 things you should do first for solo travel. If this interests you and you like this video, please subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when my next video drops. And don't forget to tell a friend and share. So today we're going to talk about 5 things that you should do. If you're on a trip, going on a solo trip for the first time, it's really usually something that's very nerve-wracking. I didn't start solo traveling till I was in my 40s. And originally I started doing it for work because I worked in international development and they started putting me on planes and sending me places. And so I was going on trips by myself for the first time. And I found that I really loved it. And so I decided to take a trip to Australia for several weeks by myself. And so these are some of the things that I did. Some of them I didn't do, but I should have done. And so I'm going to share them with those of you who are thinking about going on a solo trip for your first time ever, and you're over 40 and you're not sure where to start, or you're not over 40 and you're not sure where to start. But some of the things I'm going to talk about are things that I think are really relevant and helpful if you are over 40. So the first thing that I think that you should think about doing if you're going on a solo trip for the first time, and it's a solo trip that you're picking for yourself, I suggest not doing what I did and getting on a plane and flying on the other side of the world. Instead, I would say pick a place close to home. Pick a place close to home. It'll be less nerve-wracking. You won't be as stressed about going somewhere that you have absolutely no familiarity with. Pick a place close to home and consider picking like a short trip. Like, for example, do a bed and breakfast on a weekend, or if there's a spa in the town nearby that you've always thought about that you wanted to go and you can't get any of your girlfriends to go, book a spa weekend. If there's a boutique hotel you always want to check out, do that, right? But don't think that it's not a solo trip if you don't go across the Atlantic. I really think it's a good idea to pick a place that's close to home so you won't have to do as much planning, and it's probably going to be a less nerve-wracking. The next thing I think you should do is make a travel plan. And when I say make a travel plan, basically map out where you're going to go, what you're going to do. I really recommend using TripIt. It's an organizer that you can download onto your phone, and you can upload all your travel plans on it. If you're taking a train, you can put your train ticket and all that stuff into the app, and it allows you to keep everything in one place. So I really like TripIt, and it's especially great if you're traveling on an airplane and you have hotels and tours and all those things. I really recommend it. But I think writing down what you're going to do really makes you feel a lot more confident about traveling. So I highly recommend make a travel plan. So number 3, make a health and safety plan. When you get to be our age and you may have issues, that you have to deal with. For example, I have a left knee that bothers me sometimes. Other people start having issues with their eyesight, arthritis, other chronic problems. Having a safety plan will make you feel a lot better about going somewhere by yourself. So do things like find out if you're going to be at a hotel or Airbnb, what's the closest hospital or urgent care to that place, where the police station's located. Things that are important to you, relevant to your health, make sure that you find out where they are, write them down, keep that as a part of your itinerary. One of the things I like about TripIt is that it has a notes section, so I can notate things in there relevant to my trip. So that's another thing that you can do if you use an app like that, is you can include information about hospitals, police stations, grocery stores, drug stores, if you have to fill prescriptions and so on. Put all of those things in there. The other thing that I recommend doing relevant to health and safety planning is have a check-in buddy. So anytime I go anywhere out of town, I have a person or persons that I check in with every single day. So I have my sister and my cousin, they're very close to me. We're in a WhatsApp group. We talk all day anyway. So I always make sure that one of them or both of them have access to my electronic itinerary. And if I'm going out anywhere, I always tell them, I'm heading out to do this thing today and I should be back by that time. I check in with them in the morning usually. Sometimes we talk during the day, but I always make sure I check in with them in the evening so that they know that I'm back in my hotel room or back in my Airbnb and that everything is okay. And they know that if they don't hear from me by a certain time, they need to go call up the cavalry, right? So having a check-in buddy is a really important thing to do, and I highly recommend it. Also consider sharing your itinerary with your check-in buddy and letting them know, like, for example, if you decide to go out for coffee with somebody that you met, or you have a date, that happens too when you're solo traveling. Let them know. I usually will let them know not only that I'm going on a date, but I usually send them a picture of the person, their phone number, and things like that. So they know exactly where I am. And then when I get back in for the evening, I will let them know, oh, I'm back home. Another important thing as a part of travel planning and health safety planning is right now we're still in the middle of a pandemic. Make sure you understand what the COVID protocols are for wherever it is that you're going, whether you're going close to home and you want to know whether the hotel requires that you wear a mask indoors or other things that you have to do. Make sure that you do your homework and you have awareness of what the requirements are. If you're flying especially, or you're taking a train and you're going to be in a foreign country, it becomes really important to look up this information. Don't just rely on what you read in the paper. I suggest Googling the Ministry of Health or whatever centralized health department exists in the country or the region where you're traveling and look up their COVID protocols up to 24 hours before you travel, because things are changing so much nowadays. You want to be checking that and making sure that you know what you're supposed to have, what you're supposed to be ready to do when you get where you're going. So make sure you know what the COVID protocols are. Also, have a transportation plan. So if you are flying into somewhere, make sure you know how you're going to get from that place, whether it's the train station, the airport, the bus station, how you're going to get from there to your hotel or your Airbnb or your VRBO or whatever it is, wherever you're staying. Make sure you have an idea of whether you can take an Uber, whether you need to take a taxi, what the taxis cost, what the Ubers should cost. These are all things that if you research them in advance, you'll feel a lot more comfortable when you get where you're going. So some places you may go don't allow Uber. In a lot of countries, there are a lot of conflict between Uber and the taxi unions, right? So sometimes when you get to the airport, you can't take an Uber, or if you have to take an Uber, the driver may ask you to sit up front with them because they don't want to look like they're picking up a passenger. So you want to do your homework. In some countries, they may not use Uber, but they may use other rideshare apps. Like in Mexico, they use things like Didi. There's another one, I can't remember the name of it, that lets you pick your fare. That's another great one, but do your homework. Not just for the country, but for like the city where you're visiting, because in a lot of countries, it's very, very regionalized. I mean, in Italy, you cannot take an Uber in certain cities. And then in a couple of cities like Rome, I think, and Milan, you can take an Uber. So it's important for you to know what the transportation situation is before you get there. And then you also want to research, if you're going to take a taxi, like what should a taxi cost? So you don't end up overpaying when you get there. So again, as a part of your planning, make sure, and this is part of your health and safety planning, make sure you have a transportation plan. So the fourth thing that you should do before you go on your first solo trip is also have a budget. No matter how well or not well we're doing financially, you can go on a solo trip. But it's very important to know what your costs are going to be, not just for doing the trip, but when you get there. So do a little homework about what taxis should cost, as I said, what trains should cost, what the bus costs, so you can make decisions about how much you're going to spend on those things and have an idea of what you want to spend for the whole trip, as well as what you want to spend per day, not just your hotel, but food and transportation and tours and things like that. So do your homework, put all those things into your notes in your itinerary. You'll feel a lot better and more confident about your planning if you have an idea of what it's going to cost. Some of us may have it so well that we don't have to think about that, but most of us have to have an idea of what things will cost. So do your homework so that you're not surprised. And then the last and final thing, number 5, is book a group activity or tour. One of the nicest things and one of the coolest ways to meet people when you're solo traveling by yourself is book a group activity. I like using Viator, and there's another one called Get Your Guide. That's also a great app to use and a website where you can find lots of tours and activities and excursions. Airbnb Experiences is also another great one. Ahead of time, go on those things, figure out what you want to do, and then make arrangements to go in a group tour. It'll give you an opportunity not just to learn more about the place where you're going, but it'll also give you an opportunity to meet other people. You might even meet other solo travelers while you're on a tour. That can happen to me many, many times in lots of different countries, and it's always fun because then you may end up having someone to hang out with if you want while you're on your solo trip. So those are the 5 things I recommend. Pick a place close to home, travel plan, make one, health and safety plan, make one, budget, have one, and 5, book a group activity tour and go out there and have some fun. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit the subscription button, please hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.